Welcome to the deep dive. We've got these really interesting sources you sent over, and our aim, like always, is to sift through and pull out those key insights for you.
Yeah, think of it as getting the core ideas without all the heavy lifting. Hopefully you get a few of those aha moments we're always looking for.
Exactly. So today, we're digging into habit formation behavior change. It's all based on these excerpts from Atomic Habits.
Right, and what's great is it mixes the author's own story with, practical advice and actual science behind how habits work.
For sure. And look, we're not trying to summarize the whole book here. The idea is to explore the concepts that could really make a difference in how you think about building
Right.
better habits. So where's a good place to start?
Well, I think understanding where the author's coming from is key. This isn't just theory for him, it's deeply personal. He talks about this really serious injury he had.
Yeah, I read that part. A medically induced coma, broken bones, problems with his vision. I mean, a really tough recovery.
Definitely. And what he stresses is that his recovery wasn't about some single big turning point. It was more about accumulating these small wins, tiny steps forward.
And that seems crucial, right? That experience clearly shaped how he thinks about habits later on. Small, consistent actions adding up.
Precisely. And that personal struggle kind of evolved into him sharing what he learned more
Yeah,
widely.
that's the next part of the story. How he started writing online back in, 2012. Just sharing his own experiments with habits.
Yeah, just putting articles out there Monday and Thursday every week. It sounds simple, but that consistency,
Yeah.
it really started to build momentum.
Didn't it just? 1,000 email subscribers pretty quickly, then 30,000, then over 100,000 by 2014 for a newsletter. That's pretty amazing growth.
It really is, especially back then. And it shows the power of just showing up consistently.
And I liked how he mentioned feeling a bit uncomfortable being called an expert.
Mm.
He saw himself as learning alongside his readers.
Yeah, I think that makes it more relatable.
Yeah.
It's not some guru topping down, it's someone in the trenches with you.
Totally. And that approach clearly resonated. Led to, 200,000 subscribers, the book deal with a major publisher.
Right. And then speaking gigs at big companies about habits and improvement, it all stemmed from those small, consistent acts of writing and sharing.
Which honestly is a perfect segue into one of the biggest ideas in the material. The power of these tiny atomic habits.
Yes. These small building blocks that, when they compound over time, become incredibly powerful.
It's that compounding effect that's really fascinating.
And he frames habits as lagging measures.
Yeah.
Things like your bank balance, your weight, your knowledge. They're basically the result of the habits you repeat day in, day out.
You get what you repeat. That line really stuck with me.
It's so true. Those tiny daily choices, maybe saving a little bit or going for a walk or reading a few pages, they don't seem like much in the moment, but over years, huge impact.
Yeah. Positive or negative, right? It cuts both ways.
Absolutely. Which leads to this idea of the plateau of latent potential. This is so important.
Okay, explain that one. It sounds kind of academic.
Well, it's basically that feeling when you start a new habit and you're putting in the work, but nothing seems to be happening. You feel stuck.
Oh, yeah. Definitely know that feeling. The valley of disappointment, he calls it too.
Right. And the analogy he uses is like heating an ice cube. It goes from, say, 25 degrees to 31. You've put energy in, but it still looks like ice.
Until it hits 32 degrees, then bam, it melts.
Exactly. That breakthrough only happens after all that stored, seemingly invisible work. The potential was building up, latent.
So that explains that overnight success phenomenon. It's rarely overnight. It's the result of all that time spent on the plateau.
Precisely. It's the compounding effect finally becoming visible.
Okay, this ties nicely into another big distinction he makes. Focusing on systems versus just goals.
Yeah, this is a really powerful shift in perspective. The argument is that we often get too hung up on the finish line, the goal.
Like lose 20 pounds or write a novel.
Right. But he says we should focus more on the processors, the systems that lead to those results. If the system is right, the results will kind of take care of themselves.
So fix the inputs and the outputs will follow.
That's the idea. Solve the problem at the system level.
And he talks about a downside to being purely goal-focused.
Yeah.
Like you postpone happiness.
Yeah. The mindset can become, I'll be happy when I reach the goal, which creates this kind of either-or situation. You're either striving and maybe feeling inadequate, or you've achieved it, and then what?
Whereas focusing on the system, the process, There's satisfaction in just doing the thing, right?
Exactly. You fall in love with the process itself, not just the prize at the end.
Which connects really strongly to the link between our identity and our habits. This was a big one for me.
Oh, absolutely. The idea that what you consistently do is basically a reflection of the type of person you believe yourself to be.
Even subconsciously, maybe.
Often, yeah. Your actions reinforce your self-image. He uses that great example about voting.
Right. People who identified as being a voter were more likely to actually vote than people who just said they wanted to vote.
It's that internal identity piece. When your actions align with who you believe you are, it just feels easier, more natural.
Like if you see yourself as a healthy person, choosing the salad over the fries isn't this huge internal battle every time.
Precisely. It's just what a healthy person does, and it creates this feedback loop he talks about.
Oh yeah, the loop. Habits shape identity. Identity shapes habits.
Right. So the real goal isn't just, say, running a marathon, but becoming the type of person who runs regularly.
Identity change is the North Star of habit change. I like that framing.
It's a powerful concept.
Okay, so if we want to actually build these identity-shaping habits, he breaks down the process into 4 stages. What are those again?
Right. The 4 steps that underpin every single habit. Cue, craving, response, and reward. Our brains cycle through these every time.
Cue, craving, response, reward. Got it. Let's unpack them. First up, the cue.
So the cue is basically the trigger. It's the bit of information that tells your brain, hey, there might be a reward available if you do X.
Like seeing a notification on your phone.
Exactly. Or, walking past a bakery and smelling fresh bread. Originally, these cues were tied to basic survival food, water, safety.
But now they're often linked to secondary rewards. Money, praise, status.
Yeah, things like social approval, feeling less stressed, a sense of accomplishment. Though ultimately, many of those still tap into fundamental human needs.
Okay, so the cue predicts a reward. Then comes the craving.
The craving is the motivation, the desire. It's not usually a craving for the habit itself, like you don't crave checking email.
You crave the feeling of being informed, or maybe reducing the anxiety of unread messages.
Precisely. You crave the change in state that the habit promises. That's the driving force.
Makes sense. After the craving is the response.
That's the actual habit you perform. It could be a physical action, like going for a run, or even just a thought pattern.
And whether you actually do the response depends on how motivated you are and how easy it is.
Exactly. Motivation plus a level of friction involved. If it's too hard, you probably won't do it, even if you crave the outcome.
Okay. And finally, the reward.
This is the end goal. It satisfies the craving, first and foremost. But crucially, it also teaches your brain, hey, that sequence cue, craving, response that worked out well, let's remember that for next time.
So the reward reinforces the loop.
Absolutely. And he makes the point that if any one of these 4 stages is weak or missing, the habit just won't stick. You need all 4.
Okay, that framework cue, craving, response, reward directly leads into his 4 laws of behavior change, which are basically how to manipulate those stages.
Exactly. Practical strategies based on that science. And the first law is all about the cue. Make it obvious.
And the starting point for that is awareness.
Yeah, just noticing your current habits. Because so many of them are automatic, we just run on autopilot. We need to actually see the cues triggering them.
Which is where that habit scorecard comes in. Listing out your daily routine.
Right. Get out of bed, check phone, make coffee, brush teeth, just laying it all out, the good, the bad, the neutral. It increases awareness.
He also mentions that Japanese railway technique, pointing and calling.
Yeah. Physically pointing at a signal and saying its status out loud, it forces conscious attention instead of relying on habit, makes things obvious.
So for us, a practical way is using implementation intentions, that specific formula.
Yes. I will behavior at time and location. It makes the cue super clear. Instead of I'll exercise more, it's I will do 20 push-ups at 7 a.m. in my living room. Much more concrete.
And then there's habit stacking, which builds on habits you already have.
Right. After current habit, I will new habit. Like after I pour my morning coffee, I will meditate for 1 minute. You're linking the new habits cue to an existing automatic one.
That seems really clever, using existing routines.
It's very effective. And then there's the environment itself as a massive cue, that BFPE idea.
Behavior is a function of the person in their environment.
Yeah.
Our surroundings shape us more than we realize.
Totally. We often just go for what's easy and obvious. Why is water in a bottle everywhere? It's available. Why do people grab snacks near the checkout? They're right there.
So we need to design our environment to make the good habits obvious and the bad habits less so.
Exactly. Put your running shoes by the door, keep fruit on the counter, not hidden away, hide the cookies in the back of the cupboard, or Better yet, don't buy them.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
He also mentions that one space, one use idea.
Yeah, try not to mix contexts. If your couch is where you work and relax and eat, the cues get jumbled. Having distinct spaces helps make the intended habit for that space more obvious.
And starting habits in a new environment can be easier. Less fighting old cues.
Definitely. A fresh start can bypass those ingrained triggers.
Okay, so that's law 1, make it obvious. Law 2 is about the craving. Make it attractive.
Right. The more appealing a habit seems, the more likely we are to actually want to do it, to feel that craving.
And one way is temptation bundling. Pairing things.
Yes. Linking something you want to do with something you need to do. Like, I'll only listen to my favorite podcast while I'm exercising, or after I clear my inbox, I get to watch Netflix.
You make the need-to-do habit the gateway to the want-to-do treat.
Exactly. It borrows attractiveness from the thing you already enjoy.
He also talks a lot about social influence here, how we imitate others.
Oh, hugely. We're wired to fit in. We tend to copy the habits of 3 groups. The close, family, friends, the many, our culture, our tribe, and the powerful, people with status we admire.
So surrounding yourself with people who have the habits you want can make those habits more attractive to you.
Absolutely. If everyone in your circle values reading, you're more likely to see reading as an attractive, normal thing to do. The Polgar sisters' chess example illustrates this perfectly.
Ah, yeah, where the parents created this intense chess environment and all 3 became grandmasters. Culture shapes desire.
It really does. And another technique is just reframing how you think about a habit.
Shifting your mindset.
Yeah. Instead of thinking, ugh, I have to go prepare my healthy lunch, think, I get to fuel my body with good food. It changes the feeling from obligation to opportunity.
Like reframing nervousness before a presentation as excitement.
Exactly. Small mental shifts that make the craving feel more positive, more attractive.
Okay, moving on to law 3. Make it easy. This seems pretty straightforward.
It does, but there's a key distinction first. Motion versus action.
Motion versus action.
Right.
Motion is planning, researching, strategizing.
Things that feel productive but don't actually produce an outcome. Action is doing the thing that delivers a result. We often get stuck in motion because it feels safer than potentially failing at the action.
Guilty as charged. So the law is about making the action easier.
Yes. And crucially, habits form based on frequency, not time spent. Doing something small, consistently, is way better than aiming for big, heroic efforts that you only manage occasionally.
Which leads right into the 2-minute rule.
The 2-minute rule. Love this one. Whatever new habit you're starting, scale it down so the very first step takes less than 2 minutes.
So read every day becomes read 1 page, run 3 miles, becomes put on my running shoes.
Exactly. It's about making the start, the gateway, incredibly easy. You're just mastering the art of showing up.
And then you can build on that later. Habit shaping.
Right. Once showing up is automatic, you gradually increase the difficulty. Master the first 2 minutes of reading 1 page, then maybe try for 5 minutes, then 10.
It's all about reducing friction, making the path of least resistance lead towards the good habit.
Totally. He uses the example of lean manufacturing stripping away waste and inefficiency. We can do that in our lives. Make healthy food easier to access than junk food. Lay out workout clothes the night before.
And technology can help here too, right? Automating things.
For sure. Automatic savings transfers, subscription services for healthy meals. Technology can remove friction for good habits.
And conversely, add friction for bad habits.
Well,
Website blockers, deleting apps.
exactly. Making the undesirable behavior just a little bit harder can make a surprising difference.
There's also priming the environment, setting things up for future success.
Yeah, like that example of resetting the room, putting things back where they belong immediately after use. It makes the next interaction smoother, easier.
In those decisive moments,
Yeah.
small choices with big downstream effects.
Right, like choosing which grocery store to walk into or whether to put your phone in another room while you work. Those little hinges swing big doors for your future self's options.
Okay, let's make it easy. The final law, law 4, is make it satisfying.
This closes the loop. We repeat what feels good, what gives a reward.
But the problem is, good habits often have delayed rewards, right? Like fitness or saving money, while bad habits
Often give instant gratification. Smoking, eating junk food, procrastinating, the payoff is immediate, even if the long-term consequences are bad. Our brains are kind of wired for that immediate hit.
So we need to find ways to make the good habits feel satisfying right now.
Exactly. One way is immediate reinforcement. Give yourself a small, healthy reward right after completing the habit. Maybe track it visually.
Habit tracking. That's a big one.
Yeah, he highlights several benefits. It makes progress visible, which is satisfying. It's motivating, you don't want to break the streak. And the act of tracking itself can feel like a reward, a little win.
Like putting a check mark on a calendar. Simple but effective.
Very. And it also ties into the never miss twice rule. If you slip up one day, the tracker reminds you to get right back on track the next day. Don't let one missed day become two, then three.
That prevents the downward spiral. Makes sense.
And using things like accountability partners or habit contracts, that works on the other side of the coin. It makes failing to do the habit immediately unsatisfying or even painful.
Like having to pay a friend if you skip a workout.
Exactly. It introduces an immediate consequence for inaction, leveraging that desire to avoid pain or social embarrassment.
Okay, so those are the 4 laws. Make it obvious, attractive, easy, satisfying. He also touches on some more advanced ideas.
Yeah, sort of next-level refinements, like aligning habits with your natural talents or genetics. Not that genes are destiny, but some things will likely feel easier and more satisfying for you than others. Play to your strengths.
That makes sense. And the Goldilocks rule.
That's about finding the sweet spot for motivation. We thrive on tasks that are right on the edge of our current abilities. Not too easy, boring, not too hard, discouraging. About 4% harder, he suggests.
Keeps things challenging but achievable.
Right. But he also warns that the biggest threat long-term isn't failure, it's boredom. Once a habit becomes routine, the novelty wears off.
And that's where the difference between pros and amateurs comes in.
Yeah. Amateurs stop when they lose motivation. Professionals stick to the schedule regardless. They fall in love with boredom, finding satisfaction in consistency itself.
That's a tough one, but probably true for mastery.
Definitely. And he mentions standardizing before optimizing, get consistent first, then tweak, but also the need for reflection and review to keep improving, especially at higher levels, and even being aware that a good habit or the identity tied to it can sometimes become too rigid and hold you back.
Interesting. So always be willing to reevaluate.
Pretty much.
So wrapping this all up, the big picture seems to be that real change comes from these small, consistent habits compounding over time. It's a long game.
Absolutely. Focus on the process, the system, the identity you're building, and importantly, aim for progress, not perfection. Small steps consistently taken.
And ultimately, the goal of habits is kind of to free up your brain power. Automate the basics so you can tackle bigger things.
That's a great way to put it. Solve life's recurring problems efficiently so you have energy left for growth and new challenges.
Okay, so just to quickly recap this deep dive for everyone listening, we talked about the power of tiny atomic habits compounding.
Right, and shifting from just goals to building effective systems, the huge role of identity.
Then the 4 laws. Make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying.
Plus those advanced ideas about boredom, playing to strengths, and reflection.
Hopefully understanding these principles gives you a really solid foundation, a shortcut almost, to being well-informed about how habits actually work.
Yeah, it's about designing your life for success, rather than just relying on willpower, which we know is finite.
Definitely take a moment to think about how these ideas might apply to you, to the reasons you wanted to explore this topic with us.
And maybe a final thought to leave you with. Given everything we've discussed about compounding and identity, what's just one tiny atomic habit you could start today? Something that takes maybe 2 minutes, that aligns with the person you ultimately want to become.
Just one small thing worth pondering. Thanks so much for joining us for this deep dive.